على مدى نصف قرن من الزمن كرس المنتدى الاقتصادي العالمي نفسه حدثا حاضرا على أجندات صناع القرار السياسي والاقتصادي والاجتماعي والعلمي حول العالم. في حضن جبال الآلب السويسرية يلتقي الكبار مطلع كل عام لمراجعة دفاتر سنة ولت ولتقليب أوراق الحاضر والمستقبل. وفي كل عام تحاول العقول المتحاورة في هذه البقعة السويسرية استشراف توجهات يؤمل أن تضبط بوصلة عالم يواجه عواصف التحديات العاتية، تحديات التنمية والسلم والأمن على مختلف أشكالها. ولسنوات احتلت نقاشات الثورة الصناعية الرابعة مساحة كبرى من أرضية الحوار. هذا العام تجليات الذكاء الاصطناعي بكل الهواجس المرافقة له، والاقتصاد القائم على مبادئ الفيزياء الكمية بكل قدراتها المذهلة، والتكنولوجيا الحيوية باختراقاتها الصحية والغذائية والبيئية، كلها في قلب معادلة صعبة تتشابك فيها اعتبارات الأعمال والأخلاق، معادلة تحاول النخب عبرها استشراف مستقبل البشرية. فأهلا بكم إلى دافوس، حيث المستقبل يكتب على الثلج. من عالم الصحة إلى الفضاء إلى الطاقة، تعد التكنولوجيا الكمية بطفرة أداء حقيقية. فهل نحن على أعتاب ثورة وشيكة تدخلنا عالم اقتصاد يستند إلى مبادئ الفيزياء الكمية؟ عماد هذه الثورة الحواسيب الكمية أو الكوانتم كمبيوترز. فكيف تختلف هذه عن حواسيبنا المكتبية أو المحمولة، أو حتى عن حواسيبنا الفائقة المعروفة أكثر باسم السوبر كمبيوترز؟ في يناير من عام 2019 قدمت IBM للعالم أول حاسوب كمي تجاري على شكل آلة غريبة ذات أسلاك نحاسية كثيرة تتوسط مكعباً من الزجاج السميك يبلغ طول ضلعه 270 سنتيمتراً. IBM Q System 1 ليس جيلاً جديداً من الحواسيب الكلاسيكية ولا حتى الفائقة منها، هو جهاز يعمل بمنطق مختلف تماماً. فحواسيبنا اليوم تعمل بنظام البيتس المكونة من الرقمين 0 و1، وتشكل بها سلسلة من العمليات المتتالية. لكن الحاسوب التقليدي ينجز العمليات على اختلاف تعقيدها عبر خطوات متتالية. 3 زائد 3 ناقص 2 هي عملية حسابية بسيطة، لكن الحاسوب ينجزها عبر الجمع ومن ثم الطرح ومن ثم عرض الناتج، أي في 3 خطوات. في المقابل يعمل الحاسوب الكمي وفق مبادئ الفيزياء الكمية التي تسمح للجسيمات الذرية ودون الذرية بخاصية تعرف بالتراكب، أي أن تكون في أكثر من حالة واحدة في نفس الوقت. وهكذا يمكن للكيوبيتس، وهي المرادف للبيتس في الحاسوب التقليدي، يمكن لهذه أن تكون 0 و1 في الوقت عينه. أحدهم بسط الأمر فشبه الكمبيوتر الكمي بلاعب الشطرنج الذي يكون قادراً على تحليل كل الحركات الممكنة من الطرف الآخر في وقت واحد، فيختار حركته الأفضل، بينما يضطر الحاسوب التقليدي إلى معالجة السيناريوهات الممكنة الواحد تلو الآخر. واليوم تقف حواسيبنا التقليدية بما فيها السوبر كمبيوترز عاجزة أمام معضلات كبرى لا تتوفر على وجه الأرض طاقة حوسبية لحلها، على غرار الأمراض المستعصية والمشاكل المناخية التي يعد الحاسوب الكمي بحلها. فالحوسبة الكمية تعني في مجال الصيدلة دراسة غير مسبوقة لتفاعلات الذرات والجزيئات، وهي تبشر بإمكانية تطوير علاجات السرطان بفضل قدرتها على التبحر في أسرار البروتينات داخل الحمض النووي، وهي تعد في مجال الأمن السبراني بتشفير غير قابل للنسخ أو الفك. مشكلة الحواسيب الكمية أنها تتكون من ذرات مفردة وفوتونات وأيونات تتأثر بالعوامل الخارجية، وينبغي عزلها في بيئات خاصة شديدة البرودة تتجاوز 200 درجة مئوية دون الصفر في بعض الأحوال، وهو ما يفسر مكعب IBM الزجاجي السميك. يان، هل هذا هو عقد التكنولوجيا الكمية؟ وهل هذه تكنولوجيا قادرة على تغيير العالم؟
Yes, surely it is. Of course, quantum is only one out of many technologies that will dictate the decade, but quantum technologies surely have the potential to really impact the world, to make it a better place, especially when you think about the applications that it can have in drug discovery. So we are coming out of a pandemic, and we have all learned how important it is to develop drugs in a very fast way, and quantum can help speed up this process, for example. Or think about climate change, where we are using a lot of energy to produce fertilizers to feed the world, which is very inefficient, and this is another use case where quantum computing actually can help make this more efficient, and in this way help creating more food, better lifestyle for people, but also then reduce the CO2 emissions.
يعني عندما نتحدث عن التحديات التي تواجه تطوير الحواسيب الكمية، هل نحن نتحدث بالدرجة الأولى عن مصاعب تتعلق بتطوير المعدات الهاردوير، أم أننا نتحدث عن تطوير التطبيقات وتحدياتها؟
Well, it is both. If I take an analogy from AI that people may be more familiar with, actually people knew use cases already decades ago and have been working on the applications, but the hardware was missing. And it is very similar in quantum, so we need to have both. We need to have the applications, and already now we have many ideas, but we also need to develop the hardware further. But ultimately what this boils down to is we need to have the talent, right? And this is like a global challenge. We need to educate the talent everywhere around the world to work on this global challenge together, and then I think we are able to make a success in the end.
يقال بأن الحواسيب الكمية قادرة على فهم الطبيعة أكثر، هل هذا صحيح ولماذا؟
This is true, yeah. The word quantum, what it means is actually that it works on a molecular level or at very small scales, very small energies, and this is actually how nature works. In the end, we are all like made out of atoms, right? And atoms interact with each other. And this is why quantum computers are particularly good at those problems which come from nature. So, for example, simulating molecules for drug discovery, the example that I gave. So ultimately, what we are doing is we are using nature at its best to solve problems. Just to give you one example, photosynthesis. This is something where trees and plants are kind of helping us, and we haven't fully understood the process. Nature is really good at it, but we don't know why. And the hope is that a quantum computer helps us understanding how nature works at its core, and then we can use this to our advantage.
أنتم تصنعون الحواسيب الكمية. اليوم من يستخدم هذه الحواسيب بشكل تجاري، وهل هذا هو الاستخدام الأمثل لها؟
Well, it is a journey, and we are just at the beginning of the journey. And at the moment, we are selling quantum computers to computing centers. They want to have more and more computing power. But right now, these are scientific computing centers. So they are really trying to crack the hardest scientific problems, mainly academia. And in parallel, we are developing further the technology, and we foresee that in a few years, actually, it will also then be widely adopted by industry. But this means actually, if you're an industry leader, you need to act now, because it will take some time to make your organization ready for quantum. So this is why we are working a lot with scientists now, but we are also making industry leaders ready for the technology.
يان، ما هو أكبر كمبيوتر أو حاسوب كمي موجود الآن، وماذا يستطيع أن يحقق؟
So when people talk about quantum computers, often they name the number of qubits that's in a chip, because this is easy to understand for people. If I have more apples, that's better, the same with qubits. But this is only one part of the truth. It's actually also how well they work with each other. So in the end, I would see it more from an application point of view, what you can do with the systems. And what you can do already now is, for example, simulate small molecules with such a computer. And there are many of them out there in the world. There are big companies building them, there are smaller ones building them and providing them to researchers around the globe. And what basically is happening is that, similar to in a semiconductor industry, the chips are getting larger and larger over time, and we will just see larger and larger computers coming up in the future.
هل يمكن الحديث اليوم عن عملية سباق في مجال تطوير التكنولوجيا الكمية، وهل هذا السباق يخضع لاعتبارات الجيوسياسة؟
Well, quantum computers is a very strategic technology because we have talked now a lot about the positive use cases, and I like to highlight those. But of course, there's also an ultimate threat to quantum computers, which comes from the security point of view and breaking encryption. And this is something that is not an ultimate threat, but actually there are ways around it. And if you are an organization or if you are a government leader, basically what you need to do is you need to change your encryption scheme. So there are ways to protect your data in a so-called quantum safe manner. And that's actually the real race. So, and this is up to the organizations just to implement. We have known algorithms to do this, and this is something that each leader should do, just make sure that they use quantum safe encryption schemes.
في مجال الشركات الناشئة العاملة في مجال التكنولوجيا العميقة اليوم وفي هذه الظروف الضاغطة عالميا، من الذي يجب أن يتحمل كلفة الفجوة التمويلية حتى تصبح هذه الشركات منتجة وتحقق عوائد برأيكم؟
Yeah, well, that's a valid point, and we need a lot of money to develop the technology, especially on the hardware side. And I don't think we should put this only on one pair of shoulders, but people should somehow do this together. And there have been huge investments coming from the private sector. Venture capital has been flowing into the field, but also then from the public side. So the field, of course, has been funded over decades from an academic point of view, but meanwhile, also startups like ours have received a lot of funding. So, for example, in our case, the European Investment Bank has supported the build-up of our production line in Finland. The European Innovation Council, where I'm a board member of, is supporting many startups. They're deploying 2 billion a year. So I think it really needs to be a joint effort of industry, which can also chip in, of private funders and of public funders.
حصلتم في الصيف الماضي على 128 مليون يورو لمحاربة تغير المناخ. كيف تستطيعون أن تفعلوا ذلك؟
Well, quantum computers, they mainly help by enabling use cases, and these use cases can have a positive impact on the climate change. I already mentioned the fertilizer production. There are others as well. We are working with the car manufacturers on battery development, for example. You can think about a lot of the CO2 emissions come from buildings. So we build huge buildings like this one, and we use cement mainly still, and the production of cement creates a huge amount of CO2 emissions. So if you could use a quantum computer to develop an alternative material for cement, for example, it would be a tremendous help for the climate.
أخيراً يان، يقال بأنه تكنولوجيا الحواسيب الكمية يمكن أن تحل مشاكل مستعصية تعجز الحواسيب الكلاسيكية عن حلها. إضافة إلى موضوع التغير المناخي، ماذا يمكن أن تذكر لي من هذه المشاكل المستعصية؟
I mean, interestingly, we have a lot of problems that are so complex that we don't even start solving them, and they can be surprisingly trivial. So if you think about the city and the traffic lights, optimizing the traffic lights, there are not like billions of them, right? So it's a finite number, but still the problem can be so hard that it's not solvable on a regular computer. So we will see large impact like the climate change, but maybe also our everyday life could be improved just by wasting less time in traffic jams when you go to your work in the morning.
في الأعوام القليلة الماضية بدأت الدول المهتمة بالأبحاث والتطوير في مجال التكنولوجيا الكمية بوضع استراتيجيات للاستثمار فيها، ويتجاوز الإنفاق العام المرصود لهذا الغرض بشكل معلن 30 مليار دولار، وسط اعتقاد بأن الأرقام الحقيقية تتجاوز ذلك وتتخفى لاعتبارات الأمن القومي والتنافس الجيوسياسي. وفق الأرقام المعلنة تأتي الصين في الصدارة عبر خطط لإنفاق 15 مليار دولار، متبوعة بالاتحاد الأوروبي بخطط لإنفاق 7 مليار دولار، لتأتي الولايات المتحدة في المرتبة الثالثة ب1.5 مليار دولار وفق الاستراتيجية المعلنة. ولا شك بأن رأس المال المغامر في القطاع الخاص والذي قدم 800 مليون دولار في 2021 يقف خلف العدد المتزايد من الشركات الناشئة التي تخوض غمار التكنولوجيا الكمية، سواء من بوابة تطوير المعدات أو البرمجيات الأقل كلفة. وتتوقع دراسة لماكنزي أن تتسارع بقوة صاروخية وتيرة الاستثمار العام والخاص في المجال، بما يضيف بحلول 2035 قيمة تقارب 700 مليار دولار إلى 4 قطاعات أساسية تزدهر في ظل الاقتصاد الكمي، هي قطاعات الصيدلة والكيماويات والسيارات والتمويل. بعد الفاصل أسأل البارونة جوانا شيلز الرئيسة التنفيذية لشركة بنفلنت AI كيف تصفح علماؤها في بضع ساعات 50 مليون مجلة طبية بحثاً عن دواء لكوفيد. لا تذهبوا بعيداً. استقطبت الشركات العاملة في مجال التكنولوجيا الحيوية في أوروبا والولايات المتحدة في عام 2021 115 مليار و300 مليون دولار من التمويل. فماذا تفعل هذه الشركات؟ وما هو مجال البايوتك أو التكنولوجيا الحيوية؟ من منا لم يسمع عن المرسال RNA أو ماسنجر RNA، وهو الحمض النووي الذي استخدم في عدد من اللقاحات التي تم تطويرها في سياق معركة البشرية مع كوفيد. وحدها التكنولوجيا الحيوية جعلت هذه اللقاحات أمراً ممكناً. ومن منا لم يسمع عن الأنسولين البشري الذي يحتاجه يومياً الملايين من مرضى السكري حول العالم. هو مثال آخر على منتج للبيوتك أو التكنولوجيا الحيوية. هنا علماء الصيدلة الحيوية يقومون بتعديل بكتيريا الإيكولاي وراثياً، ومن ثم يخضعونها لعملية تخمير في المصنع تنتج عنها مادة الأنسولين. التكنولوجيا الحيوية هي عملية استخدام الكائنات الحية أو أجزاء منها على مستوى الخلية أو دون الخلية في صناعة منتجات تخدم البشر وتحسن حياتهم عبر تقنيات في مقدمتها الهندسة الجينية والبيولوجيا الجزئية وغيرها. عالم الصناعات الحيوية يتسع ليشمل إلى صناعة الأدوية والأنظمة العلاجية، الأغذية المعدلة وراثياً، والوقود الحيوي، ومواد التغليف القابلة للتحلل، والأقمشة الذكية، وغيرها من المنتجات والخدمات التي يمكن أن تكون جزءاً من حل بعض مشاكلنا الصحية والبيئية والغذائية والتنموية المستعصية. هنا يقال بأن التعلم من الطبيعة يقع في قلب البيوتكنولوجيا، كيف ذلك؟
Well, nature has had billions of years to evolve. So nature has infinitely more sophisticated systems than what humans can engineer and design. So we take inspiration from nature. We learn about natural DNA, and we use tools of modern technology like DNA synthesis and DNA reading to make sure that we can utilize the information we're learning from nature to program a new genetic code to perform certain functions that are really beneficial to us.
عندما نتحدث عن برمجة الخلايا، هل نحن نتحدث عن برمجة تشبه البرمجة على الحاسوب؟
Yeah, it's very analogous actually. So all genetic systems, all cell types run on genetic code, whether it is a plant cell, an animal cell, or a microbe. It consists of 4 letters, A, T, C's, and G's. So they represent basically the basic genetic code that can be modified to perform certain functions. So similar to what computer programmers do with zeros and ones, where computer code runs on that technology, genetic code is really what cell programmers use to rearrange the A, T, C's, and G's to get the functionalities that they want for a particular biological system.
هل يمكن الحديث الآن عن ثورة في علم البيوتك؟ علماً أنه التكنولوجيا الحيوية معنا منذ زمن، لكن يجري الحديث عن ثورة. ما هي ممكنات هذه الثورة في هذه المرحلة؟
Oh, absolutely. I actually completely believe and agree that we are in the kind of early stages of a biological revolution. Kind of in the 20th century, where computers, microchips, that really brought us the digital revolution. We are now getting the tools that we need to really be able to understand the complexities of biological systems and be able to engineer the genetic systems, the programs that I've mentioned earlier, have the tools to do that. So the technology that allow us to really read a DNA cheaply, the technologies that allow us to synthesize DNA in a very cost-effective and efficient manner. Those are the basic tools that we have to allow us to engineer biology. And these tools will continue to expand the repertoire of technologies that we can build in and allow us to do it in an even more sophisticated and a more efficient way.
هل يمكن أن تعطيني نماذج على قطاعات يمكن أن تستفيد من الثورة في عالم التكنولوجيا الحيوية في المرحلة المقبلة وعن أي قيمة يمكن أن تضاف إلى هذه القطاعات نحن نتحدث؟
Well, since biology doesn't discern specific markets. It is not specifically used only in medicines or in food. This biological revolution is going to impact broadly across all the things that we touch. So I'm really excited about the ability to innovate using biology that really creates impacts in everything you can think of, from the medicines we use to the materials that make up our clothes or packaging to new ways of creating sustainable fuels. We learned a lot this week about circularity, so how we recycle, reuse waste. That's all a part of what biology can impact and what biology can do.
هل لدينا اليوم في العالم العدد الكافي من مهندسي الكائنات الحية البايوتك engineers, organism engineers?
No, I don't believe we have enough cell programmers out there today, organism engineers today. I think this will continue to build. We have a lot of very talented, smart, young people who are learning the science and the skills that are needed to program biology. And I think we'll continue to see that expand. And as we develop more tools to engineer biology, we'll sweep even more enthusiasm into this field and have more talent coming in.
هل يمكن أن تحل الآلة محل هؤلاء في يوم ما؟
Oh, no, absolutely not. Machines are an important part of the overall tools that we use. So we rely on machines for automation. We rely on machines to do the simple task of moving liquids from one well to the next. We rely on machines to do sophisticated analytics. Those are the things machines are great at, but they're tools. Ultimately, the ingenuity, the innovation comes from the brains of smart scientists. So no, machines cannot replace humans, not at all.
أين تعملون حالياً على الأدوية المبرمجة أو ما تسمونه بالأدوية المبرمجة؟ ما هي هذه الأدوية وكيف تعمل؟
Well, we work with a number of pharmaceutical partners. So this programmable medicines is just one of many projects that we have in pharma. In this particular instance, we're working with a company called Synologic. They are actually developing a new modality where a probiotic is specifically programmed to deliver a certain function in the gut. So this probiotic that is being developed actually has the ability to be tweaked to deliver different functionality to address the specific indications that is intended to address. So in a way, you can develop drugs that you know have certain safety profiles that exist, that you know has certain capabilities and functionalities. We just need to tweak it to develop other new drugs that can meet other indications.
ما هو حقل البيولوجيا التخليقية؟ ماذا يعني هذا الحقل وهذا النشاط؟
Yeah, it's a great question. The term synthetic biology simply means the use of engineering principles being applied to biology. Biology had always been somewhat of an artisanal science that we do biology by evolving certain things, by breeding. So this whole concept of really systematically identifying cause and effect, what happens if I make this one change, what kind of results am I going to get, that's an engineering principle that's being applied to biology. So synthetic biology is simply the way of understanding how biology behaves and having the tools of engineering being applied to this very artisanal form of science.
في بدايات أزمة كورونا قامت شركتكم بالتوجه إلى الذكاء الاصطناعي في محاولة للبحث عن دواء وعن إجابة. ماذا فعلتم؟ هل يمكن أن تخبريني؟
In the early days of the coronavirus, it was everyone was very concerned it would take a long time to get a vaccine. I mean, the vaccines actually came, the mRNA vaccines actually came a lot earlier than we expected, by December of the first year. But what we did is we have been building a system for understanding disease biology and then the impacts of mechanisms on disease, and so we're specialists in AI and machine learning across all the world's biomedical information. So what we did is we asked our system the question of, are there any drugs that could be repurposed to treat COVID-19? So as soon as we had the genomic sequence of the virus, we ran this through our systems, and what we discovered is we ranked and stacked the predictions, and we discovered there was a drug that had an off-target effect. It was owned by Eli Lilly, and that off-target effect meant that it was an antiviral drug. So this was a real revelation. So we reported it to the company, published it in the Lancet, and within 6-8 weeks they came back to us and said, we think you're right. So this, because we had been building this knowledge graph of biomedical information for almost 5 years, we had the capability to see insights using AI and machine learning that were not known even to the owner of the drug. Now, fast forward to today, this drug baricitinib, which is a rheumatoid arthritis drug, has been being used to treat COVID patients that are hospitalized and shown a 38% reduction in mortality for hospitalized patients, and it's 46% reduction for those that are on supplemental oxygen. So that little discovery, way back at the very beginning of before anyone knew or had a vaccine, has been saving lives and generating a lot of revenue for Eli Lilly as well as an incremental revenue opportunity for the company. So we're really quite proud of that and happy that we were able to help in the early days of the pandemic.
هل يفتح هذا المجال أمام نشاط جديد تماما له علاقة بعملية إعادة توظيف الأدوية الموجودة؟ طبعا نحن نعرف بأنه اكتشاف دواء وتجربته تستغرق وقتا طويلا جدا، فهل هذه البرمجة عبر الذكاء الاصطناعي يمكن أن تحقق هذا؟
So repurposing drugs is just one subset of the AI workflows that we've developed. What we set out to do first and foremost is give scientists these superpowers to understand disease biology and predict new targets that will lead ultimately using AI and machine learning to a drug that is in the clinic for patients. So our system is aimed at giving scientists the ability to understand complex multifactorial disease and to predict drug targets that will work in diseases that are not known. So drug targets that are currently not associated with that disease. So we work on discovering novel drugs for diseases that have no effective treatment today. And we're seeing that, in our pipeline today. We have over 15 named drugs in our pipeline. So we're already building these drugs into actually clinical stage programs. But in addition to that, the platform is immensely powerful, and it can do things like repurposing. It can do things like determining whether a target will succeed in the clinic, giving you a high confidence rating that the work that we've done and that the target we've identified or the molecule that we've designed to hit that target will be successful in the clinic. But I have to say there's no substitute for having the scientist involved in the process. So as powerful as the AI is, we need scientists to validate these hypotheses and give us, the clinical studies, the preclinical studies to validate these before we take them into the clinic.
جوانا، هل يأتي استخدام الذكاء الصناعي من دون أي مخاطر؟
Well, I think the topic here at Davos, of course, is a lot about large language models and GPT-3 and Chat GPT. So we're talking about some of the risks and challenges. This is immensely powerful technology, but it has to be trained in an effective way. So we use large language models to mine large amounts of biomedical research. So we ingest millions and millions, tens of millions of biomedical journals that are peer-reviewed. We run AI and machine learning across them to extract insights that are not known and give scientists the advantage of having that machine learning bringing them insights that are not known. But if a model is trained incorrectly, you could be generating, false information, and then, that's, of course, one of the risks. But for us, we've been training these models for many years, perfecting them for this specific purpose, and when you validate those and you can test them and you can verify that they are accurate, then you really have done something special. So the power and potential is enormous, but the cautionary tale is that these are not humans. These are machines that can, in many cases, make things up. And false information. We've seen that impact on society across other sectors. Information that is false that is then, becomes the mainstream. What people hear can be very dangerous.
هل تراهنون على ثورة يجري الحديث عنها في مجال الحوسبة الكمية أيضا في إحداث قفزة نوعية في عالم التكنولوجيا الحيوية؟
Well, quantum is a very exciting technology. It's a few years away yet. But when you think about biology, is very complex. We're made up of, I think human beings have 37 trillion cells. So you can imagine how challenging that is. So if you're designing a drug or a protein structure that can hit a biological target to address a disease, you need high-level computing power to do that. But right now, we're able to design and develop drugs using, just cloud computing, because of the models and algorithms that we work don't have a high overhead. They're actually optimized for this application, so we're able to generate high quality predictions just running on a cloud infrastructure, which gives us a lot of commercial options because our platform is scalable and can be used in the cloud. So we can work with multiple partners, pharma partners, research institutions, and the most important thing for us is to get this technology in the hands of tens of thousands of scientists to really spark innovation and the discovery of new novel drugs to treat complex multifactorial diseases.
جوانا، تخشين في هذه الظروف الاقتصادية الصعبة على الشركات الناشئة العاملة في مجال البيوتكنولوجيا والتي تحتاج للكثير من التمويل والأبحاث وتحتاج لأعوام كثيرة قبل أن تصبح رابحة؟
Yeah, it is a challenging time for fundraising in particular for small companies like ours. But we have a long runway, so we're well funded until Q4 of 2024. But other companies are in difficult position. So I think I've been through many recessions in my time and challenging economic conditions in various startups over the past 35 years. The reality is that this is when you have to focus on fundamentals. You have to deliver for your shareholders, you have to deliver value, you have to prove your concepts. So we're just digging in, we're right-sized for the moment, and we're delivering on behalf of our shareholders. And I think if you stick to the basics and you focus on achieving your objectives and your proof points, that you'll be in good shape.
بعد الفاصل أسأل خبيرة الاستشراف البروفيسورة إيمي ويب الرئيسة التنفيذية لمعهد المستقبل اليوم عن سيناريو ذكاء اصطناعي كارثي يقود مضجعها. حين يكتب المستقبل على الثلج هنا في جبال الآلب السويسرية، يكاد عنوان الذكاء الاصطناعي أن يحضر في كل صفحة مذيلا بأسئلة وتكهنات وهواجس كثيرة. المؤكد أنه رافعة أساسية للثورة الصناعية الرابعة، وأنه وإن حقق قفزات مبهرة في العقود القليلة الماضية فإن آتيه أعمق وأقوى وأذكى. لا ندرك أحياناً عمق تغلغل تكنولوجيا الذكاء الاصطناعي في حياتنا اليومية، لكن من منا لا يلجأ لمحركات البحث على حاسوبه سعياً وراء إجابات، ومن منا لا يستخدم خاصية الأوامر الصوتية على محموله لمهاتفة صديق، ومن منا لا تمطره منصات التواصل الاجتماعي بمحتوى أعجبه ذات يوم أو ترهقه الخوارزميات حتى يصبح من المعجبين. من منا لم يستفد يوماً من أحد برامج الترجمة الفورية. والأمثلة لا تنتهي عندما يتعلق الأمر بحضور الذكاء الاصطناعي على امتداد قطاعات الأعمال. الروبوتات باتت حاضرة في استوديوهاتنا على هيئة كاميرات، وهي باتت توضب الأرفف في كبريات المخازن اللوجستية حول العالم، وهي المساعدة الذكية التي ترد على استفساراتنا البنكية. هي حاضرة في خطوط الإنتاج في المصانع وتستعد لإزاحة سائقي الأجرة عن مقاعد القيادة. هي تغزو قلب المنظومات الدفاعية وتتغلغل في المستشفيات وفي متاجر التجزئة. وفي أسواق الأسهم العالمية يعتقد بأن خوارزميات الذكاء الاصطناعي باتت مسؤولة عن قرابة نصف حجم التداولات اليومية. القاسم المشترك بين مختلف الروبوتات بذكائها الاصطناعي على اختلاف أشكالها ومهماتها هو أنها تتطور بسرعة مذهلة في مجالات الذكاء العام، أي لتنفيذ الأعمال التي يجيدها الإنسان، فتنافسه في إتقانها ومن ثم تتجاوزه نظراً لقدرتها الحسابية والتحليلية الهائلة في مواجهة محدودية إمكاناتنا البشرية. والاعتقاد شبه العام هو أن يحل الذكاء الاصطناعي محلنا في أداء مهماتنا التقليدية بين وسط ونهاية هذا القرن، تاركاً لنا جملة أسئلة دون إجابات، على رأسها حين يصبح لكل منا رديف اصطناعي ينجز مهامه بكفاءة أعلى، ماذا نفعل نحن بحياتنا؟
بروفيسور، أنتم في شركتكم الاستشارية تحاولون أن تساعدونا في تخيل المستقبل. إلى أي مدى ترين الخطوط ممتزجة بين الواقع والخيال في هذا المستقبل؟
So, the lines are blurring between what feels like science fiction and what is increasingly becoming reality. At the forum, there's been a lot of talk about artificial general intelligence and chat systems and bioengineering, which is editing genomes and things like that to have different purposes, quantum computing. These have always been sort of high concepts without a lot of practical application, but that's starting to change.
عندما يتعلق الأمر بتقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي وتطبيقاته، من الذي يبني هذا المستقبل عملياً اليوم؟
When it comes to artificial intelligence, there are different countries and different companies that are building the future today. Obviously, the United States and China are both heavily invested in this area, and the companies there are making quite a bit of headway. So in the United States, it's the usual suspects. That's Google and Amazon, but also other companies like Salesforce, IBM, and there's lots of new upstarts. There's a company called OpenAI, which is behind some of the generative AI technologies that we're all hearing about, whether that's a AI avatar. If you upload a photo of yourself, it'll spit out different versions of you in sort of cartoon metaverse-looking form, or systems that can write code from scratch. Microsoft is also really doing a lot of interesting work in this space. In China, you've got Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. They are building applications. They're also building large language models in Chinese. And it's these language models that are allowing AI systems to learn. Now, the story that most people don't hear outside of the US and China is that there's actually a lot happening in the Middle East as well. Dubai is a hub for artificial intelligence, and there may not be a huge number of companies there right now. There's actually a ton of government support and just a lot happening in the space, which I actually think is a good thing. I don't think having two global hegemons when we're talking about a really sort of life-altering technology is the best thing. We need Southern Hemisphere countries involved. We need the Middle East involved. We need more players all around the world involved in creating and releasing these technologies and also regulating them.
تتحدثين هنا عن ضبط هذه التكنولوجيات. الخوارزميات التي نراها اليوم هي يعني تخطط لخدمة من؟
So listen, the algorithms that exist today, we hear that they are meant for everybody, but the reality is that that's just not the case. The intended use case might be everyone, but the practical reality is that it's a relatively small group of people making decisions on behalf of everybody. Let me go back to that example I gave you with the AI avatars. So there's a very popular tool that anybody can use. You upload 30 pictures of yourself and it will create automatically 200 or more images of you, automatically generated, different versions of you. So when I did this, I'm a pretty conservative dresser. The images that it created of me were very sexualized. I would never look like the way that this AI imagined me. And I have to think that if it was a more diverse group of people that were making decisions about what that model looked like and what the data were and things like that, that I would not have seen so many hypersexualized images of myself. So we're in a little bit of a challenge. These technologies are being designed for us all to use, but they're being designed by a relatively small group of people. And one more important thing, we're the ones who are training it. So these systems have been released to the general public, which means it's us. We are the ones, we are the guinea pigs. We are the experiment. And I think we should all stop and think about what that means going forward.
بروفيسور، على مستوى الآلة هل يمكن الحديث عن الانتقال من مرحلة تعرفنا نحن على هذه الآلة إلى مرحلة تعرف هذه الآلة علينا، وماذا يعني هذا الأمر؟
So we are definitely transitioning from an age in which we recognized and directed machines to now machines recognizing and directing us. If you think of the 2010s, that was the era of what I would call sensing AI. So AI systems were using information around us to give us a better sense of, to help us sense our environment better. But we've actually passed that. So now that we're in the 2020s, this is really the era of generative AI, which is AI systems making decisions on our behalf. There are great implications. So some of them are good. This will mean we get drug discovery faster. These systems can be used to help us crack really challenging problems. So we'll start to see some advancements, especially in the areas of banking, insurance, things like that. However, there are social implications that are involved here. And again, I think we need to really, really play forward. If these systems start not just making decisions for us, but creating for us, how do we make sure that those creations are trustworthy and truthful? The problem with some of our current chat-based systems, or ChatGPT, is that they are very powerful liars. They're very convincing, and some of what they're spitting out is interesting and cute and funny. Some of it's wrong. And we, I think, as humans, as people, we've become a little complacent. And I worry that we've got this sort of learned helplessness going forward. So now is not the time to sit back and say, wow, look at all this cool technology. Look at what it'll do for me. Now is the time to say, this is interesting technology. I need to direct it. I still need to be a part of building the future.
بروفيسورة، من هنا في تقريركم الأخير حول التوجهات التكنولوجية للسنوات الخمسة المقبلة، هل يمكن الحديث عن تخيلكم لسيناريوهات بمروحة بين سيناريوهات رائعة وممتازة وسيناريوهات كارثية؟
Scenarios are just a snapshot of a plausible future. We basically start from what we know to be true today and ask, if we change different variables, what are the different pathways forward? At any given time, there's a positive outcome, there's a neutral outcome, and there's a catastrophic outcome. I think at the moment, I am feeling pretty pessimistic about the future. I'm very concerned about some of the decisions that are being made. I'm concerned that the world is becoming divided. Again, the United States and China are very prominent in making decisions about the future of technology. Where does that leave a place like Egypt, like the Emirates, not to mention, Brazil and other places around the world? So I'm pessimistic that we're going to, I'm pessimistic about what I'm seeing, but I'm hopeful. And the reason that I'm hopeful is because the future hasn't happened yet, which means we still have agency. We can still make positive decisions today that help that better future come to be. So, but it takes work, right? Now is not the time to sit back. Now is the time to say, we want this better future, and we're going to put the work in to get there.
لا نعرف تماما كيف ستكون حياة أبنائنا وأحفادنا في ظل التقدم التكنولوجي المذهل الذي يؤسس له الآن، لكن المؤكد أن الواجب يقتضي أن نشارك كأفراد في فهم ما يجري، وأن يشارك صناع القرار في صياغة أطر توجه هذا العلم الوفير في مصلحة البشرية، بما يحقق للأجيال المقبلة المزيد من العدالة والصحة والرفاه. أنا زينة صوفان، في أمان الله.